Welcome from Mobile, Alabama. You are joining the Cover One crew who is here at day one of the Senior Bowl today. A few of us got here earlier than others. A few had a little more adventurous routes to get here. Welcome to our intern, Ajay, who finally made it here today after quite a interesting path to get here. But it was a great day. Fantastic weather. You can see from our faces today that we had quite a warm day out there at the stadium. But it was really a good approach to kick off draft coverage and to kick off this time of year. And it went, I think, better than most of us expected today to be able to see everything there. We're going to go around and talk a little bit about some guys that stood out to us today. And we'll start with our man, Russ Brown.
Yeah. On the national side of things today, Cam Jones from Indiana really stood out. 6'1", 226. Really took the leadership, had great energy on the field. I mean, in and out of drills, he had everybody going. He was calling out the base defense left and right. So it was great seeing that stuff from him. And I just thought he had a really good day, filling gaps and doing what he was supposed to do on the field as well. But that stuff off the field is what I love to see, guys that take that leadership and have that poise and composure. And I thought he did a really good job with that. And he's a pretty solid interview. But on the American side of things, staying on the defensive side of the football, the pound the table guy for me, I've been bragging about him. I wrote about him. Everywhere I go, it's the guy I'm talking about, Julius Brents from Kansas State, 6'3", 202, long, lanky, just, looks like a modern day corner, probably a future Seattle Seahawk, if we're being honest. But he's super fluid and he can run in stride with receivers. There's a couple of clips I have where he's getting called for DPI and the receivers are definitely pushing off of him. So he was very impressive, and everybody that I've talked to today just bragged and hyped him up. And I mean, kind of the consensus is that he won the day maybe. So I'm big fan of him. And, between those two guys defensively, I think they were the ones that stood out the most for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've been focusing on O-line. And so, David and I were down there for most of the day watching the interior offensive line specifically. I mean, even some of the tackles did stand out, and I'm sure some of the guys will get to that. But when we're talking interior offensive line, guys that have positional flexibility, Jarrett Patterson from Notre Dame was a guy that I wanted to watch closely and today, especially in day one. And day one is kind of different than most of the days because it's more of a baseline. Like a guy that struggles on day one may not struggle on day three, but it's more of setting the baseline and how guys develop during the week. And I think Patterson started off strong today, mostly at guard. Again, he played guard this year for Notre Dame, but a lot of people think he is better at center overall, has a higher ceiling in that department. So they have that positional flexibility, which the Bills, they obviously like that, having that strength. I thought he was very stout today for the most part. Did a really good job in the interview with us talking about how teams attacked him, how defenders attack him, and how, a lot of times those edge rushers will bump inside and attack him at guard, and how that's a little different than facing a nose tackle or a shade defensive tackle. So I thought that was interesting to hear from him. But yeah, I think he had a good day. I mean, Torrance, he may have been one of the best guys down there at day one. Just his physicality, his size, he's a monster. I mean, I always say there's grizzly bears that play offensive line. He's that guy. And he's another guy that addressed his, some of his weaknesses. He says guys like to attack him on the edges, and some of those one-on-one reps, the guys were attacking the edges naturally. Just naturally, they're aligning in wide alignments to test him around the edge. And I thought he handled it well for most of the day. So when we're talking physicality and inserting your will on someone, Torrance did it today, and I'm excited to see how he adjusts his game this week versus that speed.
Yeah, I certainly echo both Brents and Torrance standing out. Had a chance to watch, obviously, a lot of people's favorite, Cody Mauch out of North Dakota State. We've seen this over the last couple of years, Dylan Radins, and we've seen, Volson coming out, and he talked about his relationship with them and how they kind of helped him get ready. And everybody loves the flowing red hair, the missing teeth. He really plays into it. He pulls his shirt up and lets his belly out when he's out there playing, and brings up some Quinn Miners thoughts from that side of things. And he had a good day. I saw multiple really strong reps. He also had a couple where you could tell guys were paying attention to the fact that he was the guy getting all the attention. So the defensive lineman wanted to get reps against him, because if you won a rep against Mauch, everyone was going to see it. And you could tell that there were guys out there hunting for him. So he had a good day. I think he had more good reps than bad, but a couple people got him a couple times. I'm curious to watch that as the week goes, because people are going to be watching, hey, is this step up in competition too much for him? That's always the question when you see the small school guys coming up. Another guy that stood out to me, talking about some smaller school guys and asking those same questions, was Andrei Iosivas, a receiver out of Princeton. Anthony was joking that he's going to be everybody's favorite sleeper. You're going to hear his name more coming up here. Really smooth, great releases in the press coverage. One of the only guys who gave Brents any trouble getting off the line. Actually had one of the decent releases that he gave up. Thought he looked really good and was able to get in and out of his breaks, was able to make the catches in some tough spots. It wasn't fantastic quarterback play today, but it was able to make some plays on it while he's there. So two smaller school guys that certainly aren't on everybody's radar and are worth keeping an eye out for as we go through this process.
I'll continue on the offensive side of the ball for my first guy here. Darnell Wright, offensive tackle out of the University of Tennessee. You see the measurables first and foremost, and he officially came in at 6'5", 342 pounds. But you see the way in which he moves at that size. He even just when he warms up and he's doing high knees and hops to get warmed up, he doesn't there's no labored movement. He's just such a fluid athlete, just moving. And then you see him get into actual drills and team, and his footwork, his hand placement. I think he's another one who, to Erik's point, falls into the grizzly bear kind of category on the offensive line. He would just hit you with a quick stab with his outside arm and just immediately control you. And if you wanted to cut back inside, he would step and just take you inside. And he torqued multiple guys to the ground. Just dominant performance from him today. Again, in drill against a variety of pass rushers, but also in team. You just saw that fluid athleticism combined with the technicality and tenacity. If he continues to perform like that this week, he will shoot up draft boards, especially considering the competition that he's facing. And then one on the defensive side of the ball for me, someone who I'm going to continue to bang the drum for this entire offseason, Christopher Smith, the safety out of Georgia. Seeing him today do exactly what we've seen him do on tape over and over again, the ability to just clamp down on overs and posts and hitches and stop routes from whether it's tight ends or slot receivers or X's or Z's, his ability to read the route distribution and collect receivers or tight ends in their patterns. And he just erases any target that comes within his vicinity, and that match coverage ability and his ability to process that he's displayed time and time again at Georgia on tape flashed a bunch today. And again, if he's got some size issues, he is on the smaller end, under 6 feet and under 190 pounds, which is not ideal for a safety, but his coverage ability paired with his intelligence and the pedigree that he has coming from the University of Georgia really stood out today and should carry him through this week. That's not this kind of show.
I'm going to focus on two offensive guys. The first one, Tank Dell. He's not a tank. He's little. But for a guy that's, 160 pounds, first of all, in one-on-ones, he was just getting open at will. So smooth. That explosion after the route, you can just see it. And then in 11-on-11, the quarterback was almost looking for him, and he was getting open. And for a team that might lose Isaiah McKenzie this offseason, that could be a potential addition for the Bills in the later rounds for a guy that I think just was really smooth, really good today. Ran a nice drag route on 11-on-11, cut up field. And then the other guy I want to talk about is Xavier Hutchinson. I watched his tape. He's really strong hands, really good route runner. He struggled early in one-on-ones. I think he talked about in the interview. I got to interview him after the practice today. He spoke about the 50-50 ball that he almost came down with that he really wants to show, and moving forward really wants to show that he can make those 50-50 balls and those, those deep catches down the field. So he's a guy that really stood out. Those two guys are guys that stood out today for me.
Yeah, like Erik said earlier, we were watching the offensive line. I wasn't looking for any particular spot or position. I was just looking for guys that stood out. And one of the guys that stood out immediately was Matt Bergeron from Syracuse. And at first it was because his whole family was there visiting from Canada just to watch him practice. And honestly, it was kind of worth coming all that way down to watch him practice. He was great today. He was very, very smooth, just looked super comfortable playing at left tackle. really good athlete. I got to interview him after practice. Just a good, personable dude. He just looked really good today. And then the other guy that I was watching, both of these guys from the American side, was Wanya Morris from Oklahoma, who's had kind of an interesting path. Was a 5-star recruit coming out, went to Tennessee, started at left tackle there as a true freshman. Then he transfers to Oklahoma. He's basically played in like 3 different offenses during his time in college. Was second team All Big 12 last year. He's played left tackle. He's played right tackle. He doesn't seem to have a preference for either. I kind of am curious to see him more potentially at guard. I think that would be a good spot for him. He's got some really interesting athleticism. I think there's a lot of raw tools that somebody could really mold for him there, and especially if you put him at guard, I think you got something potentially special there.
Nice. So we're really excited to keep bringing this to you. You're going to see some posts. Make sure you're checking for our hashtag Cover One Senior Bowl. We're going to have all kinds of videos and clips going out there later on this evening and throughout the next couple days. Going to be bringing all kinds of different things to you, but excited to bring you this recap of day 1 at the Senior Bowl from here in Mobile. On behalf of the Cover One crew, we are out.